Hey, 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 welcome in, welcome in. We are so ready to have this conversation, and we're so glad that you chose to lean in with Lacy and I today, as we are 100% within like 36 hours from coming back from the Infinite Banking Think Tank down in Birmingham, Alabama. And today also happens to be Chinese New Year's for 2026. So
celebration.
Definitely so much to celebrate. And one of the things that Lacy is going to guide us on today is just some of the things that she picked up on, in particular at the IBC think tank. And I think as we have more time to process even what we got out of it, because there is a lot, it's like a full on 2.5 days. Sometimes we just need time to think about the things that we learned. So we're just going to have our first initial conversation around what we have gathered so far.
Yeah, so I guess we parted ways on Friday or Thursday. I don't even know, Friday night. And This is our first conversation that we're having since then. And so I kind of just wanted to recap. Let's talk about our biggest takeaways from Think Tank. So every February, the Nelson Nash Institute hosts the annual think tank. And so this is where all of the authorized practitioners are invited to come together for 2.5 days and basically get fueled up and learn from other people who are in the business. It's not about competing, it's about learning from our fellow advisors. And so every time, so like David, who is Nelson's son-in-law, he always gives an update about their family because their family still is practicing IBC. And I find that so interesting. One, because he's willing to just be so transparent with it about this is our family tree. This is our system of policies. I mean, he doesn't give us all of the exact details, but we get a rundown of their numbers and their premiums and what they're doing with their policies and their family banking system and how they're using it. So that's really cool and really inspiring. But also what was huge for me was when David talked about the number of authorized practitioners, how that really hit home for me, because not every advisor who wants to be an authorized practitioner of the infinite banking concept is allowed to do so. And he talked about, and he showed us the numbers over the past 2 years. And then for 2026, the number of applicants that they've received, because it's an application process to become authorized. So the number of applications they received, who they accepted, who passed the program and the exam, all that, all the way down, weeding out, okay, out of X number of applications, these are how many actually became a practitioner. So I found that for me, that was like, wow, we have such a responsibility as authorized practitioners to show up for our clients and for other people's clients who might listen to the content we put out or future clients. It's on us. It's up to us to deliver that content, deliver that education. What about you, Winnie?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a very stark reminder when you start seeing the data in terms, and this is like data from Canada and US. And it is not a lot. I mean, we haven't reached the 10% of the entire North American population in terms of people practicing or like wanting to practice the infinite banking concept, but actual leaders. Lacy and I are definitely two of, it almost feels like a few leaders, right? Like there's definitely more than there once was back in 2010 or 2009 or even 2008 here. It really started to birth its mark here in Canada around 2008. But really, we just have such a far way to go. And what it takes, I think what I hear you saying, Lacy, is what it actually takes to be here. And a part of it is too, like why they just don't accept everybody to do the infinite banking concept is because we have to be so careful when we honor Nelson's message. I mean, it's difficult to keep the message pure when you get involved. Everyone has different ideas about how they would like to share it publicly. But what makes it very different is there are parameters around how the Nelson Nash Institute don't want people from like examples of like any multi-level marketing companies advisors from multi-level marketing companies who have certain business models to share IBC, because it really dilutes the message when you have other advisors out there who are wanting to recruit you to actually do the work part-time. And many of the people that share IBC are full-time at this. Both Lacy and I, we don't have other forms of, not that we don't have any other way, it's just that we choose to do this full-time. And it takes a tremendous amount of life energy to be able to share this message with you, because it's not just about sharing the idea. I think actually getting the idea and falling in love with the idea is the easy part. It's about what we do with it afterwards. And that was essentially the theme, somewhat of the theme of this year's think tank, is the implementation piece and how we can have it last for generations to come, and building out what it actually takes, whether you're practicing IBC or not. But what does it actually take to be successful as it relates to our financial world?
Reed and I would be first generation implementing IBC. And so if we want our children to carry on the implementation of IBC, then it's up to us to teach them what it is, provide resources to them where they can learn and they can practice. You know, maybe I'm not the best one to teach them because they're my own kids, but maybe you are, or maybe there's another advisor who, maybe Mary Jo has a meeting and tells them what infinite banking is. I don't know. Like, it is so important, because when David shared their family story, if Nelson hadn't taught those generations to implement what he started, then we wouldn't be in that room at Think Tank, and their family banking system wouldn't be what it is today if the next generations hadn't learned and carried it on.
One of the discussions that was had, it just so happens that myself and my daughter were one of the keynote speakers at this year's Think Tank. And our message that we shared with just our counterparts, both in Canada and in the US, is that learning to prepare our children to take over these policies requires time. It requires like a certain type of preparation work. And they don't actually need to understand what IBC is to begin with. They need to be prepared how to responsibly use it. If we can actually get them to come into a place where they can take over willingly, where it just feels like a continuation for them, it will be something that requires a little bit of planning and a system. And so That's something that I shared with the audience this year.
And I think that goes back, I mean, obviously I was there and I heard your speech, but it goes back to starting with teaching them just about money in general, teaching them how far does a dollar go? What do you have to do to earn money? What do you need to pay for? What, and then the different categories. And that's something that you and Amasia teach in your course. Like, okay, what categories do we need to allot money to? Or as Amasia said, like, what jobs do we need to give our money? Because if we don't tell our money what to do, our money's going to tell us what to do all day long. And the sooner we can teach that, then when it comes time to be like, hey, I started this policy on you a long time ago. Do you want to take it over? Or there's an opportunity to start a new one. Then it's not such a shock. Like, oh, what? I have to pay for this? I have X amount of, what do you mean I have to pay this premium? They will want to pay it.
Which leads me to bring up what happened probably within the first part of this year. We had a client who has had like here in Canada, future guaranteed insurability rider. She had put a policy on her daughter years ago when she was still a minor. And when she finally turned 21, she was given the opportunity to exercise that option. And so just as a quick recap of what the future guaranteed insurability option is, it's something that you can, again, put on as like an extra bolt-on benefit thing onto a policy, and where you lock in your child's insurability, like ability to get life insurance no matter what, even after 18. So it doesn't matter if they've ended up like acquiring some sickness where it would render them completely uninsurable if they were to apply brand new, or it doesn't matter if they have become a base jumper and become like completely developed a risky lifestyle. And there's so many other things that could make a person uninsurable in the eyes of the life insurance company. But this rider locks it in, and the parent pays for this per month. Not too much. It's like very inexpensive to hold that place for your child.
It's not very much.
But at a certain age, and you can sort of pick the age, there's different life insurance companies will pick a certain, like, what is the earliest you can do and what's the latest you can do. So anyways, my client and her daughter, it came up, the option came time to exercise. But it does require your child's signature, your adult child's signature in order to exercise the option and turn it into now something where you have insurance, like further insurance. When there is a lack of communication in the home about what this is and the seeds are not planted, there's so much that can happen between that child when you get them signed on to the point at which you get to exercise the option. In this particular case, an unfortunate mix of circumstances, one being they're butting heads, so they don't exactly see eye to eye, and the capacity to be able to really talk about and what this actually means to this daughter just wasn't effectively passed on. When it came time, daughter didn't want to sign it. She thought it was Evel Knievel. All I'm saying is that seeds have to be planted early and often.
Yes. And I'm 17 years into this parenting journey, and I know that we've always kept pretty open lines of communication with our kids. I feel like we've done a really good job at letting them make decisions, even if we know that it might not be the right decision that they're going to make, but because we want them to learn how to make decisions, advocate for themselves, decide what they want instead of having somebody decide for them. So I think when we have those open lines of communication, and let's face it, I grew up in a house, and I think a lot of people did, where finances weren't discussed. That was a taboo conversation. And I'm not saying that we need to show our kids our bank statement, but we do need to be open to having financial conversations with them because it normalizes it. And then, like you say in your presentation, when it came time for your daughter to take over some policies, or like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you, it was no big deal. Because one, she had already been given the right to make decisions on her own. She had been taught how to manage money, that money doesn't just fall off of a tree, that mom's wallet's not just going to open because you want it to. And taking over these policies. And here's the other thing, she trusted you. That's a huge thing, that she was being guided in the right direction. And because of that, she's now she sees the importance of the policies. It was no big deal to take them over. And that generational implementation is being carried on. And so it's up to us as advisors, yes, it's up to us to teach our kids, just like you've done your daughter, but it's up to us to teach our clients so that they can teach their kids. And then when we start having conversations with those kids, we have one family, we have all 4 family members on a first name basis. And the kids are asking just as many questions as the parents are. And it's so awesome to see.
So allow me to clarify a little bit more of what Lacy is sharing also. It's like Lacy and I, it's up to us to really continue to do our very best to share with you how to implement IBC and what IBC is, and help you to reset your mindset, because there's so much financial noise out there, right? Every time you talk to someone who doesn't practice IBC, who's never read the book, anytime you go to the bank, every time you go to the accountant, just every time we turn around, because this is not mainstream yet, unless you are a very powerful individual who has a very, you 100% trust that you are doing the right thing. There's so many different temptations out there that will perhaps shift your mind. And so we are here to be that lighthouse for you and be a pillar and a leader in helping you to have that IBC mindset. However, cash flow management is a completely different, but that's not something that is necessarily included. It just so happens that my daughter and I do have a specific program that is a fee-based service. And we can actually attach the link and do all that. And actually, if you read the book, Farming Without the Bank Canadian version, there is a little bit more to that. And you can actually get a bit of a price point discount because you're picking up the book. But yeah, it is definitely very worthy in a very biased way that I'm saying it to do this with your children, because it takes a lot. I think the fact that I was able to get my daughter to this place where she's managing her cash flow, standing on her own 2 feet, where she's able to join the business and not necessarily sharing IBC, but also just like work side by side with me is a big deal. I've been told multiple times over and over again, it's like, that your relationship with your daughter is rather unusual, right? Like just in the sense of her being able to keep in touch with me all throughout her early 20s. She'll pick up the phone, even if she's like out partying. It doesn't matter. She doesn't ignore me.
Yeah. And so I think it's just for me, when I think about what was the biggest takeaway, it was from Nate and Brandon that spoke about, it's up to us as advisors to show up. And what does living IBC mean? It's a mindset, a heart, and an attitude that surround IBC. And so for our existing clients who are listening to this, that is so important because of the noise. I mean, everywhere we turn, we can find something. There's going to be information spewed at us. We were not designed to take on the amount of information that we're exposed to every day. But if we are confident and secure in the path of IBC, then our mindset, our attitude, and our heart should surround IBC and implementing it into our lives and our business. And if we stay committed to that, then we're not going to run into that day where it's like, oh, hey, I think maybe I want to cancel my policies because it just isn't working. We've had that where, well, it's probably not working because we haven't met with you for 4 years and you haven't done anything with your policies.
It happens. I mean, I think anybody who gets into this business or anytime we do anything, of course, we want the best kind of results. Like I think any IBC advisor would like to brag about, like every single person that has decided to move forward with getting a policy, putting it in place. If every single advisor could honestly and earnestly say, does every single one of your clients live IBC? The answer, there'd hardly be any hands up because it's not the truth. And it's for a good reason. One is because it does take effort and time and it does take a lot of conversation. So keep in touch with us. Keep listening to this podcast because it'll help drip more knowledge onto you because it's not just something that can just happen overnight.
Yeah,
right?
Anything we're implementing into our lives, we need it dripped on us, I think. Whether it be exercise, healthy eating, IBC, whatever it is.
Yeah, even too, living IBC, it's not a roller coaster ride. Okay? It's not like the market where it's like, oh, wow, today my portfolio quadrupled in value. It's not super dramatic.
And why, Winnie? Because what did Nelson say? Think long range. We have to think long range, not about tomorrow, not about, the stock market quadrupled, my portfolio quadrupled overnight. With IBC, it's about thinking long range.
Yeah, it really is. And it's also not to be compared with your investments. A part of living IBC is getting back to the fundamentals of what is this really about? I think that's where, it keeps coming up every time a client moves forward and says, hey, I just don't know about this. I don't know about this. I've taken out some policy loans and I really hate the fact that I have an outstanding policy loan. And again, you talked about it, Lacy, just right before we got on this call. It's we have to remind people about rethinking their thinking.
Yeah, constantly. Anybody who's practicing IBC, I think, whether you're an advisor or you're a client, you're constantly rethinking your thinking because, why would if I take out a policy loan, then I owe money on my policy. And why am I doing that? And it could, that is a meeting. That is when, if you're a client and you are having those thoughts run through your head, you have our calendar link and you're welcome to book in. That's when you need to book a meeting.
And also, if you are one of our clients and you most likely would have already read Farming Without the Bank Canadian version and gone through the case studies, when you go through the 4 case studies, it points out really clearly, just using the case study, why thinking long range is awesome over 3 generations and what it could do just even in retirement. And what about in death when we graduate? Just this past, even before we went to Think Tank, within the week and a half, within 10 days leading up to Think Tank, we, as a team, got to experience together what it means to get a phone call from a client who says, hey, my husband passed away. What it's like talking to the ones left behind.
Yeah.
And it's not just about IBC. This is about what kind of gift we can leave behind with the exact same dollar we spent during the life, financing our life, but with the exact same dollar being able to leave something behind for your loved ones. It's quite powerful.
Yep. And getting to witnessing that, it's just an added layer of why we do what we do, for sure.
And again, the reality is too, life insurance, especially if it's personally owned life insurance, here in Alberta, there's differences amongst the different provinces, but I still think even with some of the differences, it's still the quickest form of liquid money you can get outside of probate. And it helps. Really, really helps.
It does help. So Winnie, you wanted to speak to the Chinese New Year.
Yes. So I didn't realize this until my early 20s in my life, that we have many different calendar systems, and that the one in North America where I grew up operated on the Gregorian calendar. And I didn't realize there was that. So as I was born here in Canada, and I am the first generation born here, I didn't realize at first that the Chinese New Year in my culture of origin is based on the lunar calendar. So today, February 16th, happens to be the new year this year, and it's not on the same day each year either. So yeah.
17th, February 17th.
Oh, it's February 17th. My apologies. So yeah, in the Chinese tradition of what I've been learning more and more about, the new year is not about luck. It's about resetting. It's about clearing what didn't serve us last year and stepping into the next new year with more intention. And so to our ranching and farming families, producers, business owners, may your operations be profitable. And more importantly, may your efforts multiply in ways that sustain your land and your family. May the decisions you make this year align with your long-term vision and not just your short-term pressures that you may have. And may you have the strength to weather droughts, market swings, long calving nights, and everything in between, including Mother Nature. And above all, may you build courage, may you finance with clarity, may you steward what's been entrusted to you, and may the next generation inherit not just your assets, but your wisdom.
That's awesome. I love it. You learn a lot by having a friend of a different ethnic background. I love it.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. So thank you for listening. We appreciate you. You know what to do. If you don't have the book yet, that's your first step. So head over to rancherway.com, grab the book bundle. You're going to get the paperback copy plus the audio version. You can also watch us on YouTube or listen on Apple, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Until next time, bye guys.
So glad you leaned in with us on the Winnie podcast. We truly hope you're feeling more informed and empowered to take another step towards optimizing your financial life. Right now, make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep growing and learning with us. Until next time, we wish you prosperity in every area of your life.